Welcome to a special live edition of the First Moves podcast, coming to you from a vibrant EIT Food and Brightlands Demo Day event at the Brightlands Greenport campus here in Venlo. Today you might hear a bit of background noise. That's just the sound of innovation and action as we speak to leading corporates, ambitious startups and key players shaping the agri-food tech ecosystem. To kick things off, we're joined by our first guest, Professor Mark Hanheide, a leading expert in robotics and human-robot interaction from the University of Lincoln in the UK. Mark, welcome. Can you quickly give a brief introduction to yourself and who you are?
Yeah, my name is Mark Hanheide. I'm a professor of intelligent robotics and interactive systems at the University of Lincoln. I lead the Center for Autonomous Systems. That's our robotics research center. And I'm also involved in a lot of the agri-robotics projects we're doing there. And I'm the director of the Center for Doctoral Training as well in agri-food robotics, agri-forwards.
And what inspired you to get into the robotics and the AI in the agriculture?
Got to be honest, initially when people tried to convince me that agriculture is interesting, I thought, oh no, everything looks the same, it's cold, it's wet, it's not really interesting. And it took about a half a year or so to convince me that it is something interesting. And now I'm actually absolutely hooked on, because exactly the things we're dealing with in agriculture, the change that is happening, those things are growing, etc., poses so many questions to actual core robotics and AI research. And also if you think about the scale, right? I've been working in indoor robotics most of the time. The scale is just immense, and a lot of the methods that we deem useful, tractable in sort of small-scale robotics are not, right? So we really need new innovations to address the scalability problems.
And you gave a keynote here today at the event.
Yes.
Can you give a small summary of what you mentioned in your keynote for the people who haven't listened to it live here?
Yeah, I really posed the question of why do we not see robots at scale on the fields yet, right? They are perfectly omnipresent in manufacturing. Our car manufacturing has been basically transformed by robotics since the 60s, 70s already. And we don't see that at scale. And that links quite closely to some of these research challenges, right? That we can't control the environment as much as we do with manufacturing, where almost everything is man-made and we have actual full control over that. Here we're dealing inherently with things that do change. We want crops to grow, right? And that means no day is the same. And if you then, it comes with the general challenge of going outdoors in principle as well, but inherently the challenge that the environment changes so much because we're interested in growth. And that comes with its own challenges that I'm mostly interested in. I think that's one of the big problems also, why we don't see that yet, right? We will see much more. We need to see more robotics going in there to address all the labor challenges we have and to really intensify the crop production. But I think it's more of a journey that we're seeing, right? We see more and more things being automated. Agriculture has been optimized so much, right? It's the oldest industry there is, really. People say other industries is older, but no, I think food production is actually the oldest industry. And they have optimized it in so many ways that I find quite often, and I come from a technology push area, right? I work at a university, so like, oh, have you thought about this? And you talk to some farmers and they say, oh yeah, we have, it doesn't work. And then you need to kind of really work closely with them to understand, well, what did not work? Have you slightly looked at it from a different angle? What would make it work? And so this co-creation process is very important there, because it's not easy, let's say, for a technology developer to really have a good understanding. And as I said, there's so much knowledge in that sector already. They have optimized the hell out of it in many, many ways. And still, that we all know that there is the opportunity to improve this further. We know it, in particular also with regards to net zero, etc. But to really find the holy grail of making that change is still an interesting journey at the moment.
And then looking at the improvements of these things that can be done, what are the most promising applications that you're looking at right now that gets you the most excited about the farming?
So on the one hand, it is the sort of low-hanging fruits. I particularly focus on robotic navigation, right, in these environments. The moment you can quickly roll out robots and have them navigate reliably in farming environments, you unlock a lot of the potential, because you can address the scalability problem. It's impossible to walk through with a camera through all your field on a daily basis. With drones, with ground-based robots, you can, right? We can address that. So there's, on the one hand, this massive data opportunity that we actually recover the intelligence. We do the reconnaissance missions on there, which will tell us much more about what is actually happening on the ground. What is the change, and is the change as we expected, so that you can do anomaly detection. So we've got one project that's called the Augmented Agronomist, which is all around basically having relatively affordable robotic platforms, basically being the omnipresent eyes for an agronomist, so they don't do their regular visits only, but they actually understand what happened in a temporal way in between. That's something that gets me excited. And then the bit is even like sometimes the easy things. We know that people are extremely good at harvesting, right? The dexterity of the human hand is amazing, and we won't see in 2 years that robots will be able to harvest at the same dexterity, speed, quality. But if we, for instance, take robots that can automate the transportation of those crops, and people use really the human skills that they're particularly good at more productively by taking some bits that robots can already do off them very quickly. Mm-hmm. So that's sort of, that facilitates the journey. It also increases the level of trust that growers will have. They see, oh yeah, robots can play a role, and they actually have a benefit and a profit for me. Mm-hmm. That will accelerate the adoption.
If you had to advise a young startup that's working right now at the intersection of AI, agriculture, what would you give them as advice based on your research that you've been doing?
It's also from our own sort of spin-outs journeys that we've seen at the university, and we're currently also pursuing ourselves. I would also say, get out there early, right? If it's no good to say, like, I've developed something and it works in our little environment, in our farm, even if you have your test farm, what we've learned, it's that the real cracks, technological cracks that are the big barriers, you will only discover if you get out there very early on. So that's what I would strongly advise them, and then make good partnerships with the actual end users of that. That's key. And then, of course, things at the moment is a difficult landscape to put lots of kit into your balance sheets as a startup. You know, try to keep that to a minimum and provide value already on relatively little investment early on.
So just get out there, do it.
Oh, definitely get out there. It's you know, I've just been on a farm 2 weeks ago. I'm going to go on one in 1 or 2 weeks again to trial things, and it's always the unexpected that you learn the most from.
For sure. And when we look at the future, then, what role do you believe that AI and robotics will play in making agriculture more sustainable over the next decade?
I think a key part of that will be around data and data gathering, and we need to move away, and we see a trend to move away from just big data, right? We've seen just the data is not measured, I think, or shouldn't be measured in volume as such. It should be measured in insight. And that means that you want to have a lot more of these systems that basically you closely link perception and action, right? So there's no point of recording something you already know and gathering that, right? You want to look for the new opportunities where things have changed. That is what should drive your data gathering as such. So on the one hand, to link that up to policy, right? So at the moment, we see lots of drive. We've heard one startup talking about carbon sequestering in soil, for instance, and how to measure that. So a lot of the policies will be much more evidence-based, I think, and that will drive it, right? It's not just methods-based anymore. AI and robotics will allow us to actually provide the evidence that your methods have an impact, the impact you want. And we'll see, I think, that the policy is going to move more into that direction as well.
So more measurability of things, that's what's going to...
That absolutely is one of those. And then the big other challenge, of course, is labor shortages that we see across the continent. And I understand why. It's a really, really tough job to be out there. And to address that, as I said, that's more of a journey at the moment. We can think about parts that can already be automated and supported, where we see actual added value. To go to saying, like, everything will be automated in 2 years. I don't believe in it. I may be surprised, but that's where I believe that this is a journey that we should actually facilitate. In a similar way, we will have in autonomous driving, we will have cars, in some use cases that drive autonomously, but we will still have humans in there as well. Yes. And so the interface between humans and robots and AI is really important. Right, and we've done some surveys to actually talk to the workers on a farm. You know, what is their attitude towards robotics? And what they often tell us, well, I'm happy to work with a robot as long as it increases my own profit.
Yeah.
And that's also important to keep in mind, right? There needs to be value across the chain, not just for the growers, but actually the individual workers that are in there must see a benefit to their own well-being, income, whatsoever.
For sure. Mark, thank you very much for sharing your insights from your career.
Thank you.
The next guest to join us is Benoit, the Director of Business Creation at EIT Food, leading efforts to connect startups, corporates, research, and investors across Europe's agri-food innovation ecosystem. Benoit, thank you for coming. Could you please introduce yourself a little bit and what your role is at EIT Food?
Okay, so my name is Benoit Buntings. I'm the Director of Business Creation at EIT Food since the very beginning when we started in 2018. And EIT Food is the European Innovation Technology Institute for Food, which is a European non-profit association made of more than 200 partners that are collaborating to accelerate innovation with the view of transforming the food systems, making it more sustainable, healthier, and more resilient.
And what initially drew you to this field?
Well, I've always been in the field of innovation in Agritech. I studied bioengineering at the university, and I had a chance after a few years to launch a spin-out company from the University of Brussels with a former teacher. So I was quite young. I learned a lot. And then I continued in that space, but I moved to the other side. So I co-founded an investment fund for deep tech companies where I was in charge of all the investment activities in ag tech and food tech companies. And since then, I'm really working in this innovation ecosystem, both in the investment side, the startup support side. And for me, everything that now can be developed in ag tech and food tech, thanks to the IT revolution with AI and so on, but also all the new developments in biology in a way or biotechnology is giving a lot of opportunities for ag and food to develop new solutions.
And what does this event today represent for you and for EIT as an organization?
Well, what's important is EIT Food is an European platform. It's supported also by the EU, and we have our headquarters in Belgium, not too far from Brussels. But we don't want this to be, a centralized organization where all the activities and decisions are taken from Brussels, right? So we have people on the ground. We have ourselves regional offices a little bit everywhere across Europe. And we really want to connect with local ecosystems and put them together. So we historically were not very present in the Netherlands. And now that we have developed this collaboration with Brightlands, I think it's important that we will be able not only to bring some benefit to the Dutch ecosystem by connecting them internationally, but also benefit from the great expertise that the Brightland Venlo campus has developed in the topic of AI and robotics in ag.
And what do you see this event specifically contribute to, like the European innovation landscape when it comes to agriculture and food innovation?
Well, let's talk about the topic, right? We have chosen to collaborate on this topic of AI and robotics. As you know, and I think everybody know, with the development of OpenAI and ChatGPT and everything, AI is in the center of all the discussions.
Yes.
But AI has also a lot of potential to really support the ag sector and to solve some big issues and challenges that we are facing, whether it's in terms of efficiency or in terms of reduction of waste or gases emissions and so on. So it's just the beginning, and we believe that we should support more the startups that are developing those technologies based on AI and robotics applied to the agricultural sector. So that's why this kind of event is very important.
And you're at EIT Food, you're trying to build a community kind of around it,
Yeah.
so you can help startups around. In your experience, what is the most critical elements needed to build a proper innovative ecosystem?
I think that naming one would not be fair, because I think it's a recipe, right? You need to make sure that you have different components aligned together so that you can really build a strong ecosystem. One is strong talent. We need to have access to the talent, and that's also something that we are doing. And I guess at Brightlands also having those training education programs so that we can really equip the innovators with the right skills and knowledge. But there are others, right? You can obviously talk about the collaborative culture. It's important that people learn to collaborate, to establish trust, to make sure that we integrate in those communities all the stakeholders and don't work only in your own environment with your peers. That's also very important. Then you have the access to the capital, the access to infrastructure. Here it's a very good example because you need, as part of the ecosystem, to access not only the physical infrastructure, which is a good example here in Venlo, where they have those test farms or those labs that innovators can use, but also the digital infrastructure, the legal infrastructure. All of those components are very important if you want to develop this strong ecosystem.
And how do you then, talking about the ecosystem, how do you at EIT then actually help the early stage startups? What practically do you do to kind of foster this?
So EIT Food has been organized around what we call the knowledge triangle, right? So it's on the one hand, the education, the academia, let's say, then the business creation and the businesses, and also the research. So our goal is to put those people together to accelerate innovation. And that's why we have 3 pillars at EIT Food. The first one is education. So we organize trainings from a master degree with different universities in Europe in food systems, but also a lot of professional development courses to support innovators to really have all the tools that they need. The second pillar is the innovation itself. So we facilitate and co-fund projects, innovation projects that are developed by our partners and external participants, with the goal of really putting new services or new products on the market. So we don't talk here about research, but really about helping technology holder to really put those technologies into products and services that can be then commercialized and help, let's say, the society. And last but not least, the support of businesses, because we have a lot of founders or potential founders that could develop new ventures. And we know that the SMEs and the startups are a very important stakeholders. If we want to accelerate innovation, they move way faster than the big food and ag corporates. And it's important then that we can support them and connect them with the different stakeholders. So just to give you an example about what we do with the startups, our focus is to make sure that the new startups can get access to the market and access to the funding that they need. So we connect them directly when they start with EIT Food to our network of corporates, and we facilitate the implementation of pilot projects between the corporates and the startups, so that if successful, hopefully, then they can continue the partnership through a client model or even an acquisition. So obviously all of that is possible.
So you see a lot of startups on a daily basis, and you help these a lot. What are the key points that they often get stuck on in terms of innovating and bringing this to the market?
Yeah, I think I can name 2 specifically for the ag and food tech sector in general. The first one is the regulatory issue, right? As usual, innovation and technical development is going faster than the adaptation of policies and the regulation. So we're also trying to play a role with EIT Food to connect with the policymakers at the EU level so that they can understand and anticipate what's going on the field and hopefully adapt the policies so that we make it easier for the startups to get access to the market. So whether it's in ag or food, if in agriculture you take the example of bio-inputs, biofertilizer, biopesticides, the regulatory journey for them to get an approval before they can start selling their product in Europe takes many years and a lot of money. So even if we understand, the precaution and all the care needed before we put some new products on the market, if we compare to other regions of the world, it's still very slow in Europe. And I think that we need to update the whole system so that we can, help them to go faster on the market. And the second one is the problem to access the money. So there are some funding gaps in the funding journey of a startup, One is going from what we call the seed stage, so the initial funding of the company, to the Series A stage, where a company is already on the market, have demonstrated the commercial traction and can really scale. That's very difficult because there is no connection in many funds, or they only do seed investment and they don't have money to support the company in the later stage, or they expect that the company is already very successful with more than 1, 2, or 3 million of sales each year before they put money in the company. So that's an important hurdle that we are also trying to bridge with EIT Food through our investment vehicle that supports the startup.
You also touched upon it a little bit about the AI and the role that this is going to play. How do you see AI and robotics change the food system over the next decade?
Well, that's difficult to say because it will all depend also on a lot of external factors, right, that we cannot anticipate. I think that AI has a lot of potential to improve the way the food is produced, distributed, and commercialized. So there are a lot of things that we can do to solve the big issues that we have in the food system. As you may know, if you just take the example of food waste, today more than 30% of the food that is produced is wasted. There are a lot of things that we can do, and now that can be even accelerated or improved thanks to the AI technology. In terms of robotics, I think that would be mostly also in our countries, in let's say the European countries. One of the main issues that the farmers are facing today is also the shortage of labor. It's very difficult for them to find enough people at the right moment to trill, to harvest, to weed the plants. So having access to robots that are competitive in price but help them to cope with that shortage of labor is also probably an element that will speed up the development of robotics in the field in Europe.
And what's next for EIT Food and its collaboration with regional partners like the Brightlands?
So what's next? We have started this collaboration with Brightlands now 2 years ago when we first started, talking and knowing each other. As usual, it takes some time, obviously, to know each other, to build trust. Today, we are very happy that we are able to put in place this first demo day on this topic together, bringing our ecosystems in the same place. And we are looking forward for the next level of the collaboration. So hopefully, we will be able to integrate Brightlands in the bigger network of EIT Food, making them also eligible, or the startups supported by Brightlands to be part of our programs, to join our events and be connected with the broader community of EIT Food at the European level. So it's too early to say exactly what it could be concretely, but I hope that we'll be back with good news in the near future to show also what will be the next level of our collaboration.
We hope so too. Thank you very much for coming and sharing your story with now.
Thank you, Sebastian.
Thank you. Next to join us is Stefania Stocuto. She is a global business development specialist at Siemens, driving the growth and acceleration of its future food solutions portfolio, focusing on enabling digitalized, automated, and sustainable agri-food innovations. Stefania, thank you for joining us today. Can you please give a quick introduction to yourself and what you do for a living?
Yeah, sure thing. Well, myself, indeed, Stefania Stocuto, working for Siemens, Siemens Food and Beverage Future Food. This is specifically a part of Siemens that is focusing within, topics such as, on one side, indoor farming, so when we look at the agriculture and sustainability side, but also later on topics like alternative protein. We look into the fermentation, biofermentation processes along the way, from more shorter term solution like plant-based or mycelium-based solution, all the way to, of course, cellular agriculture and more, aquaculture topics, everything pretty much that can be grown or produced in a controlled environment and fully automated, because that's at the end what we do as Siemens, electrification, automation, and digitalization of the processes on the production side. Yeah.
And how did you get involved with that?
Wow, that's a loaded question. Well, myself, before I've always been a little bit interested in what can I do for the world? Where does like the sustainability topic really lie? How can I make an impact? And I started this journey more within the outdoor field agriculture sector. So in my previous career, working for Innovation Center of Kubota, so more like machinery agriculture side, and later on trying to combine more and more the additional level of technologies that comes within it, not just on the machinery anymore, but literally within all the value chain process. And coming closer to that side also brought me more to discover that Siemens had already like a high focus on it, on the overall topic of agriculture. And I found it a perfect opportunity, of course, to start there.
And do you then within Siemens now, do you collaborate a lot with startups as well, getting their ideas out there? Yeah,
definitely. Well, if you take this main industry into account, I would say the far majority of companies that you deal with within the actual growth of the crop are at the end within startups or SMEs kind of industry. So because of that, it's imperative that we also find our way to collaborate with them. And I think this is something that Siemens already does, not only, of course, within this sector, but more and more specifically when we look at the food and beverage sector. While we are on one hand used to work with major customers, we also like Nestle, like Cargill, Danone, and so on. We also try to find our ways with the modularization of the portfolio, or different pilot, different other format of collaboration to really support the startup from the early stages and understanding what matters most for them in terms of solution and technology to really support that initial scalability, because at the end that's how also you eventually reach the profitability and grow as a company. So definitely yes.
And what are the key success factors that you guys use to have a successful collaboration with these kind of startups? Is that helping them from the start, like you just explained, or are there other factors that play into this as well?
Well, of course, ideally, we would try to support every company from the very beginning in understanding in which way to operate with open communication protocols and standards in place, because that's the way you build on that modularity that really allows you later on, whether you want to pivot in terms of solution, in terms of business model, in terms of, maybe even different crops you want to work on, to really, change your solution without having to incur again into all this capex since the very beginning. So ideally, that would be the starting point, really working with this open architecture, and this is at the basis of what we do. Our systems are fully interoperable, so really being able to connect with whatever other solution, from sensors, cameras, vision, of course, different machinery and equipment from manufacturers, so that makes that level of scalability possible. So
And for the startups out there who are thinking that maybe Siemens would be a nice partner for us, or corporate partner, what advice would you give to them to kind of get in contact with you guys, or try to start a partnership with you guys?
Well, we are definitely open to interact and talk, despite which area of the world you're from. I think there's always like a possibility to collaborate or to find a common synergy on entry point, whether it is more from the hardware side, from the software side, integration of this, or also indeed more from the agronomic aspect. This is also something Siemens doesn't cover, but we are happy to find ways of collaborating. And on the base of on that purpose, we actually have specifically also for more and more collaboration with the startup a program. It's a marketplace. It's called Siemens Accelerator, and the whole idea is about co-developing new business model, like creating a collaboration with these companies in order of, on one side, create an ecosystem, so really bring players together that are tackling different parts of this value chain within the production processes, so whether it is agriculture or other also production processes. And secondly, to define on which type of solution we can collaborate, develop like a synergy, and then from there, boost both business models and have like a win-win within companies.
And then when you've probably been in contact with quite some startups as well yourself, I'm guessing, yes. What are some of the common challenges that you see startups have when they're kind of trying to get in connection or in contact with corporates?
Well, I think we are all aware about the difficulties on one side to have the more agility or speed of processes from the startup side versus a little bit more administration, I would say, and slower processes from a corporate perspective. But nonetheless, I think we are trying really eagerly to find a way to collaborate also in the long term, and this is also a little bit where we see the difference. So with this, as I mentioned again, this idea of accelerator is not just how we can immediately interact and find synergies in the short term or run a pilot, but it's really more how can you sustain your business model and reach profitability? How can our portfolio support you? How we can be a long-term technological partner for you in that sense? Because at the end, the roadmap from a startup side just starts when they reach the scalability, and that's where their path really start to steepen up, or they have major challenges. Is not just like the initial phase. Yeah. So for us, it's really along the whole development phase, but also beyond that, really longer term partnership. Yeah.
So you give the value to the startup from startup, scale up, and then
later on, yes,
as well, through everything pretty much.
Yeah.
Great. To go to the AI topic and stuff like this that's going on, right? Because that's a very hot topic at the moment.
Everybody, of course, talks AI.
How excited are you about the future with AI when it comes to all these kind of food productions and agricultural and stuff like this? And what do you see are the most valuable kind of innovations in this field at the moment?
So, first of all, it depends a little bit which field. As I say, we're active in many different ones, and I think AI at the end is as every solution that is has to do with the data-driven model, quite at the basis of also what we do. As I mentioned before, we are a company, a tech leader company that is looking into electrification, automation, and ultimately digitalization. And this is all connected by the level of data you can collect within the process and the system. So it's also a question of how you can use them along the way, not just collect them. So it's about collecting, monitoring, but also producing this level of information and how to use this level of information. And in order to do so, you need to really be able to interconnect all this system. So that's why it comes back again to these open protocols and open communication system, so that when you have, for example, a camera, like a visual connector for, quality or pest control, a crop recognition, you can connect that level of information with whatever machinery independently by what type of, indeed, communication protocols they are using. And, to do so also maybe supporting them on developing third parties app, or even using some of our app on Industrial Edge to make that kind of transition and that level of integration on machinery also easier, for example.
And does the AI kind of, the bubble, or what you want to call it now, the AI kind of rush, do you guys use that within Siemens as well for your development and to make everything better, or are you a bit scared about the AI and using it for development?
No, we definitely have also our software side of the company. So there is, of course, a lot of ongoing solutions that are also leveraging that level of information. But ultimately, for us, it's really more about creating the level of platform and architecture that really support also the data transition and the data flow on it. So it's not AI as such, and this is really a big buzzword on how you use it. Mm-hmm. We operate when it comes to data model from the integration of indeed these different systems, but also all the way to integration on cloud, on Industrial Edge, and all the way to MES system or for the production, our ERP system as well, and then also to how to integrate, for example, within that the overall world of the digital twin. That is also something that we are extremely active with, both from an indoor farming perspective as many other industries, and that's also the level of information. So that is a little bit more not reactive as quite often the AI models are, but rather more on the scale of really simulating in advance and planning in advance with solution what the real world could be, but in a virtual environment, for example.
Yeah. And then for a day like today, you're here at the demo day at the EIT Food and Brightlands event. What are you looking for when you come to an event like this?
Ecosystem, I would say. That's a little bit our keyword. That's also what we do. That's the whole, I think, also vision with this accelerator platform and marketplace creation. We do see that all this company needs also to be a part of the same ecosystem in order to collaborate without having to reinvent the wheel. We have also projects in indoor farming, for example, where we collaborated within the field lab with companies like Infinite Acres, 80 Acres, Philips, Six, and so many other players to really develop this ecosystem. And this is just a starting point where, different companies, whether it is startup, whether it is corporate, it doesn't really matter, but they can come together, they can come along, and then really, let's say, open up the black box and start co-innovating. And that's key. So I think the whole networking ecosystem and collaboration is quite at the base. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you for joining us, Stefania.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Next to join us is Ingrid Vermeer, the CEO of the Brightlands Greenport campus here in Venlo, where the event is held today. She drives innovation and ecosystem growth in sustainable food and agricultural technologies. Ingrid.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Can you give a brief introduction about yourself and what it is you do here at Brightlands?
Yeah, well, thank you very much. I'm the CEO of this beautiful campus, Brightlands campus, Greenport, Venlo, and I'm working on this for 2 years now. And we have a big ambition, the campus is 7 years old now, 8 years, I think. And to grow a campus, it takes about 10 to 15 years. So we have ambitions to grow further. We have beautiful companies around here. We have the University of Maastricht, which is a knowledge institute. But from there, we like to continue, of course, and attract more companies and maybe more knowledge institutes as well.
And what's your vision for the Brightlands Greenport campus here in Venlo for the future?
So we like to, as I said, attract more companies, more knowledge institutes, and work together with a lot of companies on this campus, but also in the surrounding areas and maybe a little bit further away. So that's why we have this event today, because some European companies, in other places in Europe are very interesting if you're speaking about innovation in plant-based food, because that's what we're focusing on.
And today's a demo day here that you co-host with the EIT Food.
Yeah.
What outcomes are you seeking in having such a demo day here today?
Well, I hope the companies that are here today, and of course maybe some investors as well, we can connect them with each other, and hopefully there will come out some extra, connections, and startups can grow to scale-ups, and widen their market, and be inspired by each other. I think that's important as well.
And we just talked to EIT Food about creating ecosystems, and that's pretty much what Brightlands is also building up. It's an ecosystem of companies around.
Yeah.
You now host over 70 plus companies. You have in a total 800 employees. Roughly.
Yeah.
What are the key success factors in fostering such an ecosystem, according to you?
I think fostering an innovation ecosystem like we do is having all parties together, like the corporate companies, the startups. They need each other. They can help each other in innovation process, but also, of course, the knowledge institutes. And we work closely together with governmental parties. And I think that's the combination that we have a tripartite collaboration between what we call entrepreneurship, knowledge, and government together. And that's what we built out here.
And how do you go about getting all those connections together? Because that's quite a complex system to
build up. That's our job.
Exactly. So how do you go about that? Because getting all these to talk to each other and be on the same page, it can be quite a challenge.
Yeah, that's our challenge. No, we love our job, but you're right, because sometimes they speak like a different language, and we can translate those languages so they can understand each other. I think that's more or less what our work. And from there, of course, it's the connection, and we can facilitate the process. Yeah. So that's what we try to do.
And then, if we switch the topic a little bit to the AI and robotics, which is also a topic of today.
Yeah.
How do you envision that these technologies can help reshape the campus focus a little bit in the future as well, in terms of agriculture and food?
Yeah, of course. I think AI and robotics and data is really the future. So I think we cannot imagine what will be possible in the future. And then again, I'm sure we need those innovations and those solutions because the world is changing. People like to have other jobs. We have less people in the workforce as a labor force, and from there we need other solutions. But as it always works, if you have some solution, like to have some more inspiration. So I think that the need is only growing.
And what kind of technologies in AI and robotics are you most excited about in the future and having here on the campus?
Yeah, we are working on healthy and sustainable food, and some of the solutions are really working for health or sustainability. And if you look like precision farming, you know, that's just enough water, just enough food for the plants or whatever. I think that's the future, and that's good for human and good for Earth.
Yeah, so sustainable while getting everything you need out of the nutrition to the plants as well.
Yeah. So
that could really change the system as well, because obviously farming right now uses a lot of water as well. That's one of the challenges.
And if you look to bigger problems we all have, challenges we all have, like less space there is, less water there is, climate change, less different energy levels. So we have to find some solutions for that.
Definitely, it has to come sooner rather than later.
I think so. Yes.
To get to that point sooner, how are you fostering the ecosystem here, and what challenges are there with startups being here, and how can you help these startups overcome the challenges so they can get into the scale-up phase and actually get to the market? Because that's one of the hardest parts of being a startup, is to get from the point where you have on paper it works and in the labs it works, and then going to the actual market with it.
We try to facilitate them. Of course, they have to do it themselves, but we like to help them wherever is possible. We try to connect them with investors all over Europe, and I think an event like today is working for that as well. And with their business plan, because not all of them, of course, but a lot of startups are focusing into, their product. They are really good technicians or whatever, but being an entrepreneur is something different. So we can facilitate them with making a business plan, trying to get new customers, finding the market. And so the connections for that, sometimes you can introduce them into the corporate companies, which some of them are very interested in startups. And but I think the investment possibilities are the biggest need for startups. And then looking again at the Netherlands, we have a good starting point for startups, but I think more is needed. So startups, they never have enough money, but I think we should do more together. We as a campus, we as Limburg, we as the Netherlands, to facilitate startups with the growing capital.
How would you do that, doing more? How exactly do you envision that happening in the future?
Well, that's something we need other parties together with, of course, and our government as well, I think, because if we want to be number one in economic growth and innovation, then we have to invest in that as well. So that's a mindset, and we have to make it possible together with all parties mentioned.
For sure, and that's again when we get back to the point of having to get all the conversations together, all the stakeholders.
And especially, when you speak about entrepreneurs, governments, and knowledge institutes, that's where we need all those parties for and working together. Yeah.
Do you have a specific success story that you could share maybe with us now from someone who came, like a startup that was on the campus that now grew into a proper on the market company as well?
Yeah, well, we have several examples from parties that started out here, and it takes many years, like 10 years is nothing to build a company, and this campus is only about 8 years old. So the first ones are flying out. Some of them are still based on this campus and have their production because they had a product and they're making their production is somewhere else. But luckily there's still in this campus to innovate new products or whatever. But from there they can grow, of course, and hopefully they stay as a base here on this campus because they are good examples, and we can learn from them.
For sure. You talked in the beginning about building the campus, that it takes around 10 to 15 years to properly set this up. So looking ahead, where do you see Brightlands be in the next 3 to 5 years, and how do you want to get the growth to get there?
Yeah. So I think to grow a campus, you need knowledge institutes. So we're very happy with the University of Maastricht, which is really developing here on this campus. So new research areas, new focus points. So they're really growing. This attracts other companies and vice versa, of course. And from there, the connection with other European programs like EIT Food. That's how we try to build this campus and to attract more companies to this campus. And last but not least, we need facilities, because if you look at startups, they are not able, of course, to have their own facilities like a production side or a lab space or whatever they need. So if we can provide them with some of this space and facilities, they can grow out here, and I think that's what makes a campus a campus.
And finally, we've had the first round of pitches now already. Is there any of these companies that really stands out to you where you say, wow, that's something super interesting we're going to have to look out for in the future?
I'd like to have them all 4. We had 4 so far, and I think they're all very interesting. And I'm very happy that we have some from France. What was it? At least from other European companies, countries, coming to this campus to pitch their innovations and to connect them. So I don't make choices. That's on the end of the day, and then there will be a winner. But so far, I think it's just great to have them all, and I think they're all fantastic.
Perfect. Thank you, Ingrid, for joining us.
Well, thank you very much. I'm looking forward. Yeah.
Next to join us is Caio, an innovation lead at KWS, working at the intersection of agri-food and nature technology, and actively involved in the EIT Food Accelerator Network to foster Agritech innovation here in Europe. Caio, welcome. Could you start by telling us a little bit about yourself and your journey from startup to now working corporate?
Sure. So I'm originally from Brazil. That's where I grew up, basically, and started my career. At the very end of my bachelor degree in business administration, that's my background, I basically joined a team of co-founders starting a company called AgroSmart, and that's where I started building a company. And within 5 years, we expanded the system. So it's basically using multi-level of data layers. So from sensors in the field, satellite data, weather modeling, we provided irrigation recommendations for farmers initially. Then it expanded to other types of applications on smart weather data. But yeah, that's basically, I started in the world of Agritech, even without expecting that I would work in this sector. And after 5 years there, I decided to move to Germany for a mix of personal reasons, but also professional, with the opportunity to work at KWS and build the innovation unit at the company, starting back then, focus on digital innovation.
And what motivated your shift from working in a company, like startup company, to then going to the corporate field?
I think for me, the major point was I was looking to understand how decisions are made in large organizations. So that was the main point, because working from a startup perspective, I was super exposed to the innovative environment, and kind of was the first one to know what was happening and the players in the industry and so on. which was great. But I also wanted to understand how to move the needle from larger organizations, how they think, how they make decisions, and so on. So that's when I decided to take this step and move from a startup to a corporate innovation unit.
And what exactly do you do within KWS, and what does KWS do?
KWS is a global leader in plant breeding, specifically for sugar beet, as well as for several other crops in cereals, corn, vegetables. We produce seeds, agricultural seeds for farmers in more than 70 countries around the world. So our main market is Europe, but we have a footprint in several other regions too.
And do you support startups as well then in this field?
Yes, exactly. So was with that intention that the innovation unit that I joined, we started operating basically to create a channel and to find ways to funnel external innovation inside KWS. So we initially, our main focus was on proof of concepts. So basically finding different use cases, business opportunities, or even trends that we think that there was a fit, and pilot, test in the field, and from that learn and integrate or proceed with developing further new, for example, shared business models, which we had successful cases, even though there are not many, because you expect also many of those experiments to fail, but that's the nature of what we do.
And from your perspective, what makes a successful collaboration between a startup and a corporate when you work together with startups?
Looking back now, in the past 10 years, and half of it from a startup perspective and half from a corporate, I would say that building the trust into a level where both partners have clarity of what are the capabilities that each one is bringing to the table, and with clear expectations of what they're developing together. I think that is core, and it's not easy. I think easier said than done. But and when you start the process from the watching a pitch, which we saw here today in the event, I think the trust starts there, but it continues all over at all the moments in the journey.
You already mentioned the pitch now. What advice would you give to a startup that's preparing to pitch or to partner up with a corporate?
I would say being honest with your capabilities, what you're good at. I think that's the main thing. And actually, that's also the trap, which I often see in startups falling, especially in the early stage, when they're trying to impress investors or corporate partners. And I would say specifically corporate partners, because investors, maybe they're more willing to take risks, especially if they're investing at early stage, so they are familiar with that. But like corporates, it's better to be honest and just be clear. If you have something interesting for them, I'm sure that the conversation will pick up, and eventually things will move forward.
Yeah, so better be upfront with things if there is something that is a bit of challenge, rather than you find it out afterwards.
Exactly. Yeah.
So KWS is a really big corporate organization. How do you guys approach innovation in fast-changing areas?
We have different teams internally, which is looking at innovation. Some of those teams, they have innovation in their title, and I think innovation management is our team. So I would say that our team is the one that is more dedicated to looking at those areas, new areas. But we also have other teams inside group strategy, for example, which is the wider department that we are part of, which is also looking for innovation, but different parts of the funnel. Research and development, R&D, certainly they're also looking into innovation, but with different lenses or different areas of expertise. So we don't want to be territorial about innovation. I think at the end of the day, what we try to do is enable as much as we can in the organization to innovate. And for that, we have processes, we have best practices, and so on.
And how do you balance this long-term research and development view / goals you have with the agile, fast-paced world that is being a startup?
it's not easy in a large organizations. I think that's one of the learnings that I had in the past years, because in a large organization you have sometimes a mentality of people that have been working there for more than 10 years, or they're very they have a high level, a lot of knowledge about a specific point. So I think creating the openness and the ability to be comfortable with taking risks is the first step. So creating that culture where you allow your employees, your team to have a project where you don't need to have 100% chance of succeeding. I think this is the first step to create this culture of innovation.
Yeah, for sure. Allowing the chance to mess up or fail something, and then take that as a lesson, and then build upon that.
For sure.
For sure.
Yes.
Then today we're here at the demo day with the EIT Food organization, and a lot of startups come together, corporates, researchers. What does an event like this today give value to you?
For me, I try to regularly attend those events. I would say find what fits in my agenda, what I can do. But for me, this is a great place to meet people that I'm not expecting to meet. Sometimes I expect to meet certain type of people, but it doesn't have to be always like this. Yeah. So make new connections that can transform into different types of, whether it's doing a pilot together, for example, with a company that has just pitched here, or collaborate with another player in the same industry, or get inspired. I think that's quite important, especially for me, developing the systemic thinking perspective. So really going out of your comfort zone or your day-to-day world and seeing other things. I think that's a quite important skill nowadays to have.
Does KWS also invest in startups?
We had in the past a dedicated team. Right now we don't. Okay. So most of collaborations, they're focused on either adopting or developing some kind of shared business collaboration.
Yeah. So that's also the lens kind of that you're wearing when you come to an event like this, is you're looking for those kind of partnerships.
Yes. Yeah.
And then to go to the kind of trends that are happening in the agricultural technology at the moment, what new developments are you most excited about, or most excited about to see in the future?
I see a lot, and I feel very excited about food ingredients. Innovations happening in this area with great potential from an environmental perspective, consumer perspective, giving new options for people. Just today I was at the greenhouse and I saw some peas and some research happening there. I asked about it, and there's so much potential on how to use crops like this, for example, to develop alternative milk products, for instance, or meat and so on. So this is definitely an area, not to mention AI, which I think right now is of course, I think this is the great innovation we have. But the point is, which areas can we create more impact, and will depend a lot on the use case, the business case that we're looking at.
For sure, and that's probably also what your team is focused on within KWS, is figuring out these kind of new ways of doing things. What, or how do you think that corporate innovation is going to evolve in agriculture over the next 5 to 10 years?
I think that it's going to be more distributed along the organization, so have kind of not a centralized unit as we have today, but more kind of dissolving into different parts of the organization, because it is a skill that every team needs to have. We always say like everyone can innovate, and that's true, but I think really on a large organization especially, you need the process. So I think that eventually we'll have agentic systems which will support anyone, for example, to scout startups doesn't matter where they are in the organization, and this will be a kind of standard process.
Yeah, so the innovation kind of crumbles across everything in the organization.
Exactly, yeah.
Perfect. Thank you very much for coming on the podcast.
You're welcome. Thanks for the invite.
Next to join us is one of the two winners of today's event. David Catt is the Vice President of Business Development at Neolithics AI and was honored with the prize at the EIT Food and Brightlands AI and Robotics in Agricultural Demo Day. He was awarded this prize for his team's cutting-edge produce quality control technology. David, welcome. Big congratulations on winning here today. You're one of the winners. Can you explain a little bit about your startup?
Yeah, thanks. Great to be here. So we're Neolithics, and we are able to look inside fruit and vegetables, understand their internal quality, how sweet they are, how firm they are, the acidity, if there's internal defects. And that's very important because by understanding quality in a large volume business like fruit and vegetables, you're actually able to prevent food loss. You're able to sell the food at a better price, to a better customer, and you're actually able to improve the entire food value chain.
Okay, you can look inside fruit and vegetables. That sounds crazy. Like when you think about it, how does that work exactly? So
we're combining two types of cameras. One is RGB, red, green, and blue, just your normal camera, and we can see the outside. So you can see external defects or the size. And we combine that with a hyperspectral camera, near infrared. And that's a much higher frequency than the visible light. It's not visible. So it actually penetrates into a fruit, about a centimeter and a half, depending on the skin and on the composition. And the way hyperspectral light works, it sends energy into a organic compound, and it gets energy back. And because we do that in a lot of different frequencies, we can interpret what we're getting back, and then we understand how sweet or how sour or how firm or how decayed a fruit is. So it's really with light, but because the light is so much, it's such a high spectrum, so you can actually go into the fruit. It's like sound, you hear sound with your ears, but if sound is very low, you actually feel it in your belly. Mm-hmm. So light and sound are both waves.
And how did you get to this idea and to start something in this line of business?
Well, I've been in vision technology for a very long time, but always in computer vision and understanding. And I'm not the founder, but I really liked the idea of actually using vision, using light, to prevent food waste. I've been in food waste prevention for a long time. Food waste is a massive issue. 11% of all greenhouse gas emissions are caused by food that we produce but never eat. Mm-hmm. And I think it's also a great way of solving issues like hunger and emissions, and of course, health, etc. So when I came across this, one of their investors put me in touch with this company, I thought that was a really bright idea. And now I'm helping them actually getting into customers, because you can have a great idea and it can be very large and very impactful and very profitable for the food industry. But you have to find customers that are actually taking the first step. And that's what I enjoy doing, is bringing smart ideas to big potential customers.
And who are the customers in this kind of business?
So we can work just post-harvest. For example, in a blueberry grower here in the Venlo area, and we can actually help them identify which fields to harvest when, because we know if they're ripe or getting too ripe or not mature yet, all the way up to a distribution center of a retailer. Our biggest customers at the moment are the packing houses. So if you have a punnet of grapes that you buy in the supermarket, that's actually being inspected by humans at the moment. Okay. So they spend on that punnet, they may spend 10, 20 seconds, which is very expensive, and still they're not really seeing anything. So that's our sweet spot, is where the fruit is being handled and inspected by human beings. We can replace that with computer vision, and then you don't inspect a sample of a couple of avocados out of 1,000 kilos, but you can actually inspect the entire batch.
Would this also be that, let's say I'm an apple farmer and I have apples and you want to see how sweet the apples are, would this then also be able to affect the price afterwards? Because you can then say I have the perfect ripeness of the apples when you sell it to a supermarket, or is that not the idea with this?
It's a great question. I'm going to answer it. I'm going to try to answer it really fast, because apples is a great idea. Apples are harvested about 2 months a year, and then they're being put in cold storage, and they are sampling all the time to see if the batch can still wait until the end of the year, until the next season comes, or whether they have to sell it. So there we can actually help them inspect without cutting them open. And they can inspect not a sample of 50 apples, but they can inspect 5,000 apples in the same time. And then that would affect the price, because then you can actually sell them as good apples rather than bad apples. Yeah. On the other hand, in the food system, because we're losing about 40%, 40% of all the food produced is never consumed. Yeah. About 20% is lost between the farm and retailer, just before it even gets to the retailer. Mm. And that costs a lot of money, because if you are harvesting 100 apples and you're only selling 80 of them to the retailer, those 80 actually, the cost of that food waste, of that food loss, is actually inside the consumer prices. Yeah. So the estimates are that about 10% of every avocado that you buy, you're actually paying for the inefficiencies of the food system. So not only are we able, as in the apple example, to increase the value, we're actually also able to decrease the consumer price, because all the inefficiencies are going to be weeded out if we collaborate around data. And that's what we do. We actually create a food system where you're not sampling, but you can actually understand the quality, the shelf life of every single apple, every single avocado. You can help the farmer make smarter farming decisions. You can understand where in the food system the inefficiencies, the broken cold chain or mishandling is occurring, and you can then repair it. So it's really about improving the end-to-end food system that we're aiming for. That was a short answer, right?
Yeah, that was a good answer. What is your overall goal with this? So you're starting in the Netherlands, I'm guessing, with this. But do you want to have it, like you're talking about avocados? They come from South America usually, I'm guessing, right? I think, yeah.
Depends. The seasons go all over the world. So yeah. Sometimes they're from South America. Sometimes they're from Israel. Sometimes they're from Morocco. Sometimes they're from Spain.
Yeah. Okay, so they do come from Europe as well. I didn't know that.
Yeah, Spain is a very big producer.
Okay. So would the idea then be that you would have one of these machines to already check the quality in Spain before they get shipped to, let's say, the Netherlands or to other countries? Or would it be like you get a batch into the Netherlands and there you check them?
Both. Cool. So we actually, what I presented here today is a end-to-end system where we basically created a digital twin. We scanned avocados right after harvesting on dry matter, so on their internal quality. We then shipped them. A Belgian company that we work with, DocFlow, was monitoring the avocados on the ship. We created one database, with all the data points geographically. They came to the UK. They were scanned. We decided how to ripen them. So based on their internal quality, we scanned them again after ripening, and then they went to the retailer. The result was that where usually only 74% of this batch would have been grade A, we were now actually able to see that 95% was grade A, and there was no gray area. So if they don't know, they downcycle them we did not have that. And then, so you actually know, you're able to divide the chaff from the wheat, as they say. We're able to actually see all the good ones and only take out the bad ones rather than err on the side of caution. And that's sort of the vision. If if I would really put it into one sentence, you can't eat data, but you will not eat without data. Yeah. And we are actually able to put data, information, insights into the food system, not just on a sampling basis, but on digital twins, on individual pieces of fruit, so that you can actually manage the entire food system better. So it's a bit of a difficult subject, I would imagine, if you're not deep into the food system. But the goal is that if you understand better, you can prevent a lot, and you can actually make sure that the value increases and the price decreases, because the food system at the moment is just very broken. And that's because it's just so big and so difficult and so extended from Latin America and Africa and all over Europe. And it has to get to your plate here in Venlo, or my plate in Amsterdam. And that's... So the food system is very difficult, very intricate. What's being done is amazing. But now there's newer technologies that can actually make it good as well.
You look at the avocado example, that like 95% is good instead of the 75%. It's a big increase already in
it's a massive increase.
Yeah.
But if you go to a food distribution center and you see how much waste they have, it's because if they have 1,000 apples and they're sampling 2, 3, 4, they're not good. They throw away all 1,000 of them, okay. or they go to whatever to make applesauce. Yeah. And the value of an apple for applesauce is negligible compared to. But the risk is that if you send a batch of apples to a retailer and they check them and they see 5 bad apples, you get a reject, and the entire batch you don't get paid for. Mm-hmm. So the risk of errors is so large that they, like I said, they err on the side of caution, or maybe it's the other way around. And that's really, and you're paying for that. I'm paying for that. We're paying for that. Not just in money, but also in food waste, in climate change. So we need better data in the food system. We're one small part of that, but we're a crucial part, I think, that you can actually leverage from farm to fork, and love to actually collaborate with the Brightlands and with EIT and all those involved today, because loads of companies actually have their ability to improve their value, to improve their processes by understanding better all the huge volumes that's going through their hands.
And for the people in the ecosystem listening to this episode right now, what would you guys need from us? What can we do to help you bring this out into the whole world?
Depends who we is, but what I'm really looking for is traders, packers, maybe even retailers, but mostly those companies that are producers that are dealing with large volumes of fruit and vegetables, that know that they're losing a lot of value because they are just guessing. I'm looking for companies that really want to understand the gifts of nature that are going through their hands. You know, the apples, and that have been that so much effort has been gone into, and that actually want to make sure that they get the best value possible. And it's very, very profitable. But you have to take a first step. Yes. And the first step is trialing, is testing it, is adjusting your work methods. But I think that we don't have a choice. The way the food system currently works is it's not sustainable, not just environmentally, but also not financially. Mm-hmm. It's not feeding the planet. And if we just make sure that out of everything we produce, we actually increase the percentage of what we can eat, then everyone wins financially, sustainably, health-wise. And so that's what I'm looking for. Partners to actually execute the the value of quality of food now in their systems. We can start small, just with quality control, and we can scale it big to real a full inspection of production.
And how would these partners, if they're listening, reach out to you? What is the best way to get in contact with you?
We're on LinkedIn. The company is called Neolithics AI. My email address is david@neolithics.ai.
Perfect.
And podcasts like this, we're going to be in a newspaper, Amsterdam newspaper, next week. We're part of the World Economic Forum. The example I just gave is part of the World Economic Forum circulars, Uplink, a accelerator network. Mm-hmm. It's if you can find us, you'll stand to benefit a lot. Yeah. So I hope you rise up to the challenge in finding Neolithics with TH.
Perfect. David, thank you very much for coming and sharing your story about Neolithics. And again, a big congratulations on winning today. And I'm sure we're going to be seeing a lot more of you in the future.
In a supermarket punnet near you.
For sure.
Thank you.
Next to join us is Luna, CEO of Luxseed Robotics, one of the standout winners of today's event. She's revolutionizing agriculture with laser-based, AI-powered, chemical-free weed control. Luna, first of all,
hi.
Big congratulations on winning.
Thank you.
Today. Could you maybe explain a little bit about your startup?
So what we do at Luxseed, we're building a machine for farmers that uses lasers to burn weeds, so without using herbicides at all. Lasers can hit the weed, no matter how close it is to the crop, do it fast and without disrupting the soil. Exactly what farmers need.
And how did you get to this idea and start developing this?
Oh, that's a long story. Well, I was in my engineering degree. It was a long time ago. And I wanted a problem, a real life problem, to get my hands on dirty with engineering on. And all throughout university, I got introduced to agricultural problems or other sectors, but agriculture was really meaningful for me. My dad used to be an agricultural trader. And we all spoke about these problems. And my first project was not even weeding, it's more tomato sorting machine. That was my first thing. But we noticed that this is not a real problem. And we went for weeding. And in Lebanon, there was only one accelerator doing Agritech at the time. And we were introduced to this hackathon with this idea, the laser weeding, and we won first place. And that was the inflection point, let's call it, that got me into entrepreneurship and with the engineering.
And how do you bridge that, right? Because engineering, it's a bit of a different game than entrepreneurship. So how did you get from hardcore engineering to now doing this kind of stuff, which is still hardcore engineering, but it also has the business perspective on it?
Exactly. It was nice to get hands-on with an accelerator that teaches you all of these stuff from sales to finance to marketing, communication, branding. So we really practiced that with our idea. So it wasn't like some course you take on the side. So it was directly with the customer. In the interviews that we have, the problem solution fit, we call it a product market fit. Very pragmatic. And as I'd like to say, engineers love the solution, entrepreneurs love the problem. So I can have both. So.
How many iterations have you been through to get to the point where you are now in like the product development as well?
Wow, a lot. I mean, other than the hardware takes a lot of time to get there. Yeah. From the beginning, you have to know what you need to do, otherwise you're going to have really long cycles of R&D. So we had intensive communication with farmers, and we have to know how to ask them the questions. And not trick them, I won't say trick them, but just like get to the deeper levels of how they think, what they want really. Because at the surface, it looks easy, lasers. But there are so many specs to the machine, and every spec, we got it from the farm, average answer of the farmer. Mm-hmm. And of course, our early adopters. So it has to be strategic. And then, is it feasible on the engineering side? Yes, we go for it.
Yeah. And how do you approach this with farmers, right? Because a lot of farmers, they might be still stuck in their traditional ways of doing things, and this is something new, and I don't know, do we want to do this or not? How do you kind of go about that issue?
Honestly, Farmers, because weeding is a massive problem now, they just want it solved. So when they see, whatever, they see a laser killing a weed, or they see it with their own eyes, it flips the game.
Yeah.
Farmers need to see proof. So in that sense, when they see it, they believe it. And if the unit economics makes sense, it makes sense. Farmers love machinery. Yeah. They've always changed. You have some that remain really, really traditional, want to cut costs as much as possible. But honestly, from what I saw, the majority of the farmers we spoke with really wanted lasers.
But I'm guessing as well, right, that if you get a machine like this, then you cut down the cost of the pesticides and all this kind of stuff you need to use, which is getting very expensive nowadays as well for farmers. So you buy the machine once pretty much, and then you can cut down on the pesticide costs. Exactly,
a pesticide and the labor. Weeding requires a lot of labor, and we're in 2025, and still you need a lot of labor to remove the weeds. And even aggravated by the fact that herbicides are getting banned or resisted by weeds. I said this in the presentation. We got to this point now on the field where if let's say we catch a bacteria that's resistant to 6 antibiotics, we got to that point on the field. So it's really serious, and it's like alarming serious. Yeah. So farmers really need something to get the expenses down. And if you compare the prices over 10 years, like farmers like to have, it goes from, let's say, 10 million over 300 hectares to 4 million. And you have more yield to gain because this machines improve, humans don't.
Yeah. And this machine, is it something you connect to the back of the tractor, or is it a robot, or how should we envision this?
Yes, you can envision it as an implement. We call them implements. I think that gets attached to tractors, because also now you have many companies or startups doing driverless tractors. And we are an accessory that gets attached to these elements anyway, because farmers have them and they like to use them. But you have also another part of the farmers that only want an autonomous machine because of how heavy tractors are on the soil. Fair enough.
Yeah, of course. And for the people listening from the ecosystem right now, what are you guys looking for right now that you need to really take this to the next level?
Now, okay. Now we have 3 months of intensive development on the field. Nothing we can do about it. But after that, we need investment. We need up to 1 million. And after we've minimized the risks, if we're able to raise the 1 million, we'll go right into production and directly with our early adopters. Because now we have farmers waiting in line who want it, but we cannot really give them because we're not at that development level where you can say, hey, okay, I will have an industrial product by 2027. Hop in. Not yet.
And what kind of investors are you looking for then? Is there a specific profile of the investors you're seeking?
So, of course, investors interested in tech. Agriculture is also a plus. Like sometimes you get these investors just like the tech or the hardware, because some investors appreciate that hardware also takes time to get that ROI out for the investors. So you have people dedicated for that. That would be really a good plus. Or in-kind support. Some big corporates have venture arms that and they provide in-kind supports with their own engineers in helping us to industrialize the machine. That is second. Third, you have some family offices, for example, that have their own field trial tests, like 200 hectares or something. We would love to be on a farm also developing and getting financed by a family like this, or also an investor. So these are the profiles we're looking for.
You mentioned that also that the next 3 months that's intensive field testing, and that's something you cannot, you have to do that.
Oh yes.
You can't get away from that.
No.
What does the next kind of like 12 months look for you in building the startup out with or without investment?
So after the trials comes the demos in front of farmers, free demos, and then discounted weeding services for the farmers that helped us. At the same time, patent filing. And once we get our hands on our first deal, we're going to start raising funds. So hopefully in a year time, we will have raised funds to begin the production so that we're ready for 2027 with a product.
For sure. I hope you guys also get the funds raised.
Thank you.
It's one of the hardest parts of being in the startup. It's raising the funds necessary for it. And once you get the funds, you need more funds. That's usually how it goes. So it's always going for it. But thank you for sharing again. big congratulations on winning today. That's a big step as well.
Yes.
So go celebrate tonight.
Yes, I will. I didn't plan on winning, but now that I did.
Congratulations. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the First Moves podcast. If you have a moment to leave a review, it not only helps us improve the podcast for you, but also allows us to invite even better and more inspiring guests in the future. Thank you and have a nice day.